What's going on, guys? Unknown Player here, and today in this video we're going to be rounding up a bunch of Destiny 2 Easter eggs, mysteries, secrets, and generally some interesting things that can be found inside Destiny 2. There's a lot of throwback Easter eggs to Destiny 1, which is pretty awesome, things that veteran players are going to remember. We'll be looking at some things relating to Eris Morn, the Exo Stranger, giant sea creatures, and a bunch of other stuff as well. So let's begin with probably one of the biggest and definitely most fan-favoured Easter eggs in Destiny history. That is Randal the Vandal. He has returned, he is back in Destiny 2. Somehow he's made it from the Cosmodrome all the way to the EDZ, but if you go into the EDZ and then go to the very top fast travel location, these sunken isles, fast travel there and you'll see on these islands out near the water, there's a very familiar Reaver Vandal with the trusty shank next to him, and this of course is Randal the Vandal. Now, if you're new to Destiny and you're wondering what is Randal the Vandal, what am I talking about, who is this guy? Essentially, it was an Easter egg back in Destiny 1. There was a very strong Reaver Vandal in Destiny 1 near the Cosmodrome, and it had an absolute mountain of health. Now, I'm not exactly sure the origin of this. I'm pretty sure it was a bug whereby he wouldn't spawn a bunch of times, and then somehow it would spawn him with a combination of like 10 Vandals health. So this guy, he was basically a raid boss. He was so difficult to kill. He didn't necessarily do a lot of damage, but he each had a ton of health. It was basically a bug, and it was just him with a trusty shank next to him, and this is the same situation. You can see me just tanking all these submachine gun rounds into him. Obviously, I could kill him a bit quicker with a sword. That would take his health down a bit faster, but this goes to show how much health he actually has when you just spray all these magazines at him. But this was probably one of the first and definitely the biggest Easter eggs and kind of community things and jokes going around for Destiny 1. Everyone always knew about this Vandal who had a ton of health for some reason, just would not die, and eventually the community started calling him, instead of Reaver Vandal, Randal the Vandal. So it's kind of a name people adopted to him. And something pretty cool is that Bungie even commemorated this again back in the Rise of Iron DLC with the Wrath of the Machine raid. And inside there was a very small chance to get this Vandal to spawn, who was actually called Randal. It was spelled a little bit differently, but it was Randal the Perfected, and it was basically a Siva-fied version of Randal. So it was back then, and now they've brought it over to Destiny 2, and Randal lives on. He's in this game as well, and it's pretty funny to see. So next up, moving on to the moon Titan, the moon of Saturn, of course. Now this has these giant oceans where you can see huge waves. Now inside them, you can actually see giant sea creatures, or sort of like leviathans. So you can see the tails and kind of spines of them, almost a bit like the Loch Ness Monster. You can't see much of the body, you can't shoot them or interact with them. They're basically a piece of scenery, but if you look in the waves close enough, eventually you will see some of the tails spawn, and there are giant sea creatures on Titan. Now you can actually take this a bit deeper, because if you know the lore of the Nine, one of the most mysterious and powerful groups of Destiny, now there are actually 9 statements about the Nine themselves suggesting what they could be. One of them says the Nine are ancient Leviathan intelligences from the seas of Europa, or the hydrocarbon pits of Titan, so this moon we're on right now. So they could be related to these giant sea creatures you see inside the water. Now something even crazier is if you go way down below the surface of the water into this big kind of golden age facility, if you look out the window you can see the shadow of something swimming in the distance, and it's actually a Hive Worm, maybe even a Hive Worm god. And this is actually found by another YouTuber called That Average Gamer, so full credit goes to them. I'll of course link their video down below in the description. But That Average Gamer posted this video showing this humongous Hive Worm. Now obviously looking at the shape of it and the kind of structure, you can tell this is very different to that thing we saw on top of the surface, that kind of Loch Ness Monster type sea creature. If you look at this footage I recorded a while back of Hive Worms on the Dreadnought, you can see they're basically identical, the same shape. This is a humongous version, of course, and even in Destiny 2, something new is that when you kill Hive sometimes with headshots, the worm will actually drop out and fall on the floor, so that's a pretty interesting detail. If you're wondering the relation between the Hive and their worms, essentially each Hive creature actually has a worm inside them, the same ones you see here and the same ones that pop out when you kill them. And the Hive used to be a completely different race, and then Oryx and his sisters had the idea to make them more powerful and met these humongous worm gods. They let them implant the worm larva into Oryx and his entire race, and then they became the Hive you see today, which are all aggressive and want to destroy everything. So in a way, the Hive are basically just hosts to this worm parasite actually living inside them, who are controlled by the powerful worm gods back on Oryx's homeworld. And these worm gods also hate the Traveler, that's why they're at war with us. So really, Oryx was basically just a puppet to the worm inside him that was telling him to fight us and consume everything. And this enormous sea creature you can see in the window looks almost like a smaller version of what these enormous worm gods would look like. And the fact that the Hive are based on Titan doing some sinister stuff, it definitely makes sense for this to be a Hive Worm. Now, one crazy theory that definitely makes a lot more sense now seeing this is that this worm could be Oryx's very own worm, because Oryx's body floated off from the Dreadnought when we killed him, of course, in the raid, and Titan is nearby. In fact, you can even see it from the Dreadnought. So it's possible Oryx's body landed here on Titan, and even more possible, the worm inside him survived and is now swimming around here, which is the one you see. So maybe the Hive are trying to find this worm, but it's definitely no coincidence that this is all happening on a moon next to the Dreadnought. But let me know what you think down below in the comment section. So moving on from the Hive Worms and giant sea creatures, the next one is related to the Exo Stranger. This is actually a scannable item on IO, and I'll let you guys listen to what the ghost says.
I wonder whatever happened to that Exo who warned us about the Black Garden. I hope she's okay.
So that's probably one of the first times in a very, very long time, maybe since vanilla of Destiny 1's launch, that we've actually heard anything about the Exo Stranger or her existing. There's basically been no references, but this is a first, which is pretty interesting, especially seeing as a while back, Bungie did say they didn't really plan on carrying on the storyline of the Exo Stranger, and they famously said they thought they wrapped up her storyline pretty well. Obviously, a lot of the community disagreed and said her story was not wrapped up. So it's possible Bungie might see this and kind of find a way to introduce her later on. It's also possible they may introduce her in the first Osiris DLC, because funny enough, in the original version of Destiny, the one that got cut, the old storyline, that one actually had the Exo Stranger as Osiris's assistant, so she directly worked for Osiris, and it's possible they might introduce her in the first expansion called the Curse of Osiris. So the next Easter egg is actually relating to Eris Morn. It's pretty similar, but in order to access this, you need to firstly do a different Easter egg inside the tower. So this requires you to complete the Floor is Lava Easter egg, and what you need to do for this is simply grab this ball over here. So this is going to give you a red buff and make you glow all red, and you take this and go and stand in one of the 3 beams of light you'll see across the tower, and the point is to of course play the Floor is Lava. This means you cannot touch the floor. You can touch it a little bit and you'll burn. Obviously the more you do it, the more damage you'll take, and eventually you'll die if you touch it too often. But the point is to stand on railings, boxes, any object that isn't the floor, and you eventually get to the beam of light. Once you do so, you basically have this super jump and super speed ability. So while you have this super jump, you can actually jump up to this area with the Eris Morn scannable, which normally is very, very difficult, nearly impossible to jump up to. But now with this buff, you can simply go up there and read the scannable.
I think this used to be a terminal used by Eris Morn. Lots of notes in here about the Hive, their Prince Crota, the Taken King, Oryx. I wonder where she went off to.
So it's pretty similar to the Exo Stranger. The ghost is wondering where she is and what she's up to. Obviously, we know Eris is still alive. That was mentioned in the campaign, where they confirm she's still alive, but she's gone somewhere. Now, it's pretty safe to assume that what's going to be happening is that she is eventually going to be the one helping us to defeat Oryx's sister. Now, I might make a separate video on this. It's a very big topic, but essentially, there is a ton of cues in this game hinting that Oryx's sister, called Savathun, is actually going to be arriving to the game. She's now taken over Oryx's throne, and she is in control of the Hive and the Taken, and she's obviously going to be quite a problem. So the game is massively teeing up the possibility of Savathun being the new Taken Queen, basically. Now, obviously, this isn't going to be in DLC 1 or 2, but possibly as a Taken Queen DLC literally in a year from now. But I feel like it would be a little bit too samey and basically the same thing and the same plot as the Taken King. So I'm not sure if Bungie would do that. It would definitely feel a bit cheap, so I'm sure Bungie are going to come up with some other more clever way to introduce Oryx's sister. And obviously Eris is going to be at the forefront of this, helping us to defeat her because she is the Hive knowledge. And that's probably what Eris is doing right now, researching and figuring out this Hive threat. And even at the end of Destiny 1, Eris did make a lot of subtle hints saying that there's some other kind of Hive threat out there that she needs to go and prepare for. So definitely expect some kind of Hive or Taken related DLC far in the future. And I'm pretty sure it won't be for a while, because Bungie are obviously well aware that we're pretty sick of the Hive and the Taken by now. We've seen them so much in Destiny 1, so that's why Bungie are doing their Osiris DLC with the Vex, and the Rasputin DLC probably with the Fallen. Kind of give us a break from the Hive and the Taken, but in a DLC maybe a year or 2 from now, expect to see them return with Savathun. So while you've got this buff that lets you jump super high, you can also explore the tower a little bit and see some scannables that are previously inaccessible. You can see this scannable about a core of Ray. There's also this cat you can see on top of this little ledge. It's pretty funny. And I'm sure there are a bunch of other scannables and secret areas you can reach with this jump. There's also a pretty similar Easter egg on the farm, which lets you start off by running on the massive water wheel, and then eventually you run through all the phases, through the light beams, and eventually you get this super high buff. Another scannable I thought was pretty interesting was one relating to Eva Levante, and she is actually confirmed to be still alive. She's not in the tower, of course. The ghost basically mentioned how she's alive, but she's not in the tower. Now, obviously, the shader system is very different in Destiny 2, but I still think it would be cool if she was there selling a random selection of shaders, because obviously they're very hard to come by. So I think it would be cool if she was to sell like maybe one legendary shader per week and a bunch of other common green ones. But at least right now, Eva isn't in the tower, but she's still alive. Now, there's also a pretty big Easter egg relating to the tower ball. If you ever see the words in the bottom of the screen saying a purple ball or green ball, that's because there are different stages. It's pretty simple. You grab each ball and put them in a set location. Obviously, it's pretty difficult to do this when other people are running around and trying to kick the ball as well. So you either need to wait until the tower is empty or hopefully try and find people that aren't bothered or aren't trying to ruin the ball and kick it somewhere else. But each time the ball is going to change color and be a bit bigger and go to different spots. Once you place the ball inside each of these spots, not kicking it off the tower, eventually you're going to spawn a massive traveler-sized one with the Destiny tricorn on it. There'll be fireworks everywhere. It's a pretty cool Easter egg inside the tower as well. But there you go, that's been a massive roundup of several Easter eggs and secrets, hidden things that I thought were interesting into one video. If you enjoyed it and learned something, then a like rating would be much appreciated. If you want to watch a video I made about one of the best exotics in Destiny 2 that lets you have infinite supers, then click the image on screen right now, and I'll see you guys next one.